Well, hello and welcome to the Small Business Association of Michigan Small Business Briefing, the Thursday edition. I almost said the Monday edition. I guess, we're here for you every day, so it doesn't matter whether it's Monday or Thursday, but today happens to be Thursday. Thank you for joining us. I'm Brian Calley, the CEO of the Small Business Association of Michigan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Miller, Vice President of Marketing and Strategic Communications at SBAM. And it's Thursday, which means we do want to welcome one of our new members. This week, we're welcoming our new basic member, V Dermatology. They're located in Traverse City. So welcome to Dr. Anthony Van Vreed, Dr. Laurel Lighthouser, and their team. And of course, we are welcoming this new member on behalf of our very generous sponsor, Marana Group, and they are a data, document, and distribution company in Kalamazoo. All right, so Brian, the election filing deadline has passed, and I think to say it's a crowded field is an understatement. What's going on?
Yeah, this is really something. So there was a lot of attention. We've talked about the gubernatorial race, and and we got an incumbent on the Democratic side. So Governor Whitmer's running for re-election. On the Republican side, there are 10 people that filed signatures. Now, there's one or maybe two of them that didn't, that might not make the ballot if they don't have enough valid signatures because they didn't have a big cushion in the number of signatures they filed. But most of these candidates had enough of a cushion of signatures on their petitions to where they probably will qualify for the ballot. 10 is the most in maybe ever in a primary, since we've done primaries the way that they're done today, which has been over 100 years. So that's a very, very crowded field. So that's one part of it. We've talked about that. You hear about that. You see all the stuff on what's happening in these big races, like for governor. But on the legislature, there are massive changes in front of us. So every single seat in the legislature, meaning all 110 House of Representatives seats, all 38 Senate seats, so that's a total of 148 different positions. They're all up on the ballot in August for a primary, and then, of course, the general election in November. 539, or 579. 579, that is the number of candidates that have filed to run for those legislative seats. And I don't know for sure that that's a record, but I think it might be. That is really an extraordinarily high number. So the engagement, number of candidates running is unusually high. One of the reasons that there's all new districts, and all these districts were drawn in a different way. So a lot of times the only seats that are getting challenged in the primaries are the ones that are open. So you have where there's no incumbent running. In this case, a lot of the incumbents have challengers. A lot of the open seats have lots of candidates. And so it's a lot to sort out. But it's one of the things that we're here for, one of the core things that our association does. So we keep track of everybody who's running for a state office, every single one of these legislative candidates. And we know who they are. We invite them to share with us their views on small business. And so we have a vetting process that we go through. If they're incumbent, we look at their voting records. If they are a candidate that's never held office before, we do all kinds of checking up, to see what their website says about their positions on issues. We ask them to complete a questionnaire that's very specific to small business issues to see where they stand. And most candidates complete it and send it back because it's important to most candidates that they have support from small businesses and from the Small Business Association of Michigan. So we have a very extensive process that we go through, and in terms of evaluating and make the determination which of these candidates are truly pro small business, not just in word, but in deed, their actual positions and their guts to vote pro small business when they come into office. We're kind of on the front end. This filing deadline was the first day. We had to know how the field shaped out, who the candidates are. Now we really get to the bottom of what do these candidates believe, what are their positions, and the chances of them being successful through the process. And we have a political action committee that does endorsements and contributions to candidates that are pro small business. So This process is kind of in its infancy right now. We're still sorting out all of this, all of these candidates races in the fields. And then from there, we'll do several rounds and then communicate out to all of our membership and the rest of the world that that these are the candidates that are truly pro small business. One thing I've noticed is pretty kind of interesting in the out there in the political world. Everybody describes themselves and thinks of themselves as pro small business. It's something cuts across all political parties and ideologies. It just seems to be one thing that people think of themselves and want to describe themselves as pro small business. One of the jobs that we have to do, though, is to make sure that their positions actually match those words. That it's not just rhetoric, but it's really what they believe. And then in the end, we vigorously support those candidates who support small businesses. So it's going to be quite a process. When I saw the total of 579 candidates, it was really something. I've not seen a filing this crowded before. I have no doubt that there's going to be a lot of great candidates in there. There's going to be some candidates that are not good for small business, but we will sort that out and let you know the conclusions that we come to. By the way, when I say we, okay, our political action committee board is made up of small business owners. So this is not just SBAM staff. We support the board. We support and provide information and feedback and insight into a lot of different factors. But in the end, the judgment, the decision on who we support is made by actual small business owners, people that are wearing the shoes and signing the front side of the paycheck and making it all happen. So we always get kind of excited about election season anyway, even though it's needlessly negative these days, but we stay focused, intentionally bipartisan, stay focused just on the issues. To us, not about party, just about where people stand on issues. And it's a process that is truly, truly driven by small business owners, our members themselves.
Absolutely. And I believe we'll have our first round of endorsements out around May 4th. So you can look for those then. Brian, we have an event coming up on May 12th that is a fundraiser for the Political Action Committee. Can you just share a little bit about that event?
Yeah, so we do some regional fundraisers all around the state. And what we're doing, we're literally raising money so that we can not only endorse, but also strongly support in a lot of ways, including financially, those candidates that are pro small business. And this is a really important part of the process. I know sometimes it gets weird, like, oh, Political Action Committee making contributions to candidates. This is for and on behalf of small business. And it's a really important part of the process. Each year, our biggest annual fundraiser is the one that we do in the center part of the state in Lansing. And it's on May 12th. It's in the afternoon, so from 4 to 6. And we do it at the Hope Sports Complex, which we started originally because in the pandemic, they have like inside, outside facilities, but it just worked so well. I think we'll probably always hold it there going forward. But but it's held here, and if you've not participated in this group before, please do consider being a part of it. So there's a lot of reasons why people join SBAM, and we don't assume that our members are interested in getting involved in politics. But I think as we've seen over the last couple of years, there are decisions made by elected people that can have a very, very important and impactful outcome in terms of your business prospects. And so having people that are pro small business is more important than it's ever been. So I would invite you to please be a part of it. We'll share in the comments a link to where you could register, buy a ticket, and hang out with other politically active small business owners. Please do understand that this is not a political party function. This is a pro small business group that identifies pro small business candidates. And we do it outside of the context of Republican, Democrat. We really do just look at issues where candidates stand and support them on the basis of their positions, not their political parties. So if you're somebody that is not, you don't think of yourself as partisan, I think that you would, but you're interested in politics and understand why this impacts your business and embrace the idea that we all have some responsibility to try to make sure we have good outcomes. I would invite you to come to everybody's got a seat at our table, small business owners, any small business owner has a seat at our table. We'd love to have you.
It really is a nice event. The venue works out so wonderfully. Last year was a lot of fun. It was our first real event back in person, since the pandemic had begun. So it's a great time. There's a silent auction, snacks, drinks, the whole 9 yards. So definitely take a look at the link we dropped in the comments and consider attending. All right, so on Monday, we talked about breaking news about the Florida judge who ruled that the CDC's transportation mask mandate was no longer. Since then, President Biden has directed the CDC to appeal this ruling.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised, actually, but not that it was appealed, but initially President Biden had seemed to signal that there wouldn't be an appeal. He was asked about it and said, well, it's up to people now to decide, and not really a verbiage or a tone that would suggest that, hey, for now, that it's going to be appealed. But then not long after, it was announced that the CDC is going to appeal the lower court decision. Now, one of the reasons why I'm not particularly surprised that is the case is that they're not going to want to just leave this decision hanging out there. So they don't like the idea that this authority was taken away. The basis of the decision, keep in mind, is that the federal judge in Florida said that there are several things that the judge said, but one of the things that I think the Biden administration would likely be most concerned about is that they didn't have the statutory authority to require masks in the first place. That's the part that I don't think that they want to just leave it stand. But there are other reasons that it was struck down too. The judge called it arbitrary and capricious. And if you look at it in the context of, say, 2020, it wouldn't have looked arbitrary compared to all the other recommendations that the CDC was making. Where the Biden administration, I think, is a tougher case to make now is that the mask mandate for public transit looks out of place compared to the CDC recommendations for almost everything else. And that's where I think that they're gonna have a hard time in terms of getting this overturned. Not that they don't have any statutory authority. That part of the judge's decision, I think, is very appealable. And if it was just made on that basis, then it would be I think it would be hard for the opposition to the mandate to win the case. But looking at it in the context of being out of place and arbitrary compared to the other things that the CDC has recommended in real time, then that's where I think the Biden administration is going to have the hardest time getting this overturned. So I wouldn't be terribly surprised if the CDC didn't back off on the mandate, even though they're challenging it at some point. Like they might decide 2 weeks, well, May 3rd is when it is supposed to expire anyway. They might decide on May 3rd just to let it go anyway. But even if they do, they're probably going to follow through with the appeal because they don't want to lose that authority that they believe that they have. So the mandate was set to expire on May 3rd anyway. It is interesting, though, to look at, what would they decide to do? Like here in Michigan and in the Northeast, you do see cases back on the rise again, but you don't see hospitalizations and death rising like you had in the past. So there's a lot of moving pieces out there, but I wouldn't be terribly surprised if they let the mandate go on May 3rd, since it has been struck down. But even if they did, they'll continue to appeal, highly likely. Oh, it looks like we have a technical difficulty with Sarah, and I'm just going to go ahead and take a look at my text here. Technology is great; she can still talk to me that way. So anyway, we were going to go to survey next, and on the survey is there's two aspects that we want to talk about in surveys. First is a national small business association called National Federation of Independent Businesses. They surveyed their members and published some results just recently that I thought were pretty interesting, and I want to share a few of those results with you. First is that they have like an index that they keep, and this in terms of like a confidence index that is proprietary to their association, and their optimism index has decreased. If they call it the optimism index, decreased by 2.4 points. Doesn't necessarily mean anything to you, except for the context that this is the third consecutive month that it is below the 48-year average of 98. It's normally very, very consistent. And the idea that it has fallen below for 3 consecutive months is means something. It's the overall confidence of small businesses. Now the owners, a couple of key findings that they have in here. Owners expecting better business conditions over the next 6 months. It decreased to it decreased by 14 points to a net negative 49. So in this case, this is the lowest level of businesses expecting things to get better in the next 6 months. The lowest level since they've been doing their surveys for the last 48 years. This kind of touches on something that I had talked about back in one of our previous briefings with respect to our consumer confidence index. Is that when people lose confidence, it affects behavior, and it tends to impact things in terms of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you will. Expect them to go bad, you pull back, and then of course that things do get more complicated. Well, we have if this you're talking about literally, and I see we have looks like we have Sarah back now. We have over the last 48 years, this confidence index is hitting a low point, and so that's significant as well. A couple other findings from the survey that when we ask these questions in our surveys, we ask how a small business has been impacted by inflation. NFIB takes the flip side. How many are raising prices, are in a position where they have to raise prices? And the percent of owners raising average sales price increased now to 72%. And so businesses being in a position where they really don't have any choice because things are rising so much. So so Sarah, I've just I covered the NFIB survey, but I hadn't yet covered the survey that we do, because it's time for us to do. That was a national survey. We do one of Michigan businesses. We do it every quarter. If you look in the comments, I think you'll see the form for that. We just sent it out the day before yesterday. We keep these surveys open for about a week for our members to respond to, and we glean a lot of important information. We ask about in your employment and the difficulties that you're having with rising costs, inflation, with supply chain, with workforce shortages, the things that you're doing in some of your HR practices, just to get a sense. We ask largely the same questions every quarter so we can see trends and how things are going. So if you have not participated in that survey, we put the link in the comments. Please do pull that up and complete it, and so that we can use that information to guide the work that we do. And we share it publicly with the media, not of course individual responses, but the collective and what's happening, the trends in small business. We share with the media and also policymakers and the types of struggles that people are, that small business owners are having. Remember those political people I said, a lot of them, they all think of themselves as pro small business. We're the ones who really vet to make sure that they actually are. This is one of the tools that we use to bring into state government or the federal government and say, okay, policymakers, here's what our members are telling us. And we have 30,000 members, right? So that's a very, very substantial cohort of businesses, bigger than any other business association in Michigan by far, and the biggest association of our kind in all of America. And that is and so that it really, the survey from our members means a lot. We take that into the policymaking bodies and say, okay, here are some outcomes that we are experiencing out there real time from the decisions that have been made previously, and here are the things that you should consider to be your top issues based on what small business owners are telling us. So if you haven't participated yet, please follow the link and complete it. It only takes a couple minutes to go through. We try to keep these very simple to make sure we get the maximum number of businesses to respond.
Yes, and now I'm back. That was the strangest Zoom malfunction I think I've experienced yet. So my screen was grayed out. I couldn't unmute, but thankfully we have other people in the office who could come to the rescue. So yes, please take the survey, and I expect we'll be able to share those results on the briefing next Thursday. So last week on Thursday afternoon, we opened up registration for SBAM's upcoming annual meeting and Small Business Summit. And I'm so excited. We're going to be back in person. We're going to be at the Lansing Center on June 16th. And this event has grown tremendously during my tenure at SBAM. And every year it just keeps getting better. So if you haven't attended the meeting yet, or maybe you've forgotten since it's been a few years, this event is a combination of exhibit hall, lots of networking time, express learning sessions. We have a lunch, and then of course we have our keynote presentation. So it runs between about 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. again here in Lansing, and it's just a phenomenal time, a great excuse for you to come. You get to learn a little bit, you get to network with other business owners and small business influencers, and hopefully walk away learning something. But I'm also really happy that we already have our keynote presentation lined up. Amazing panel of speakers. And Brian, I'm hoping you can talk a little bit about the theme that we chose for this year's event, as well as who we can expect to see on that stage.
Yeah, this was, when we were talking about planning this event in terms of what's happening out there and what would really be of most use to our members, and we just think about things being in transition. It just seems like so many things are changing so quickly, and there's a lot of business transition happening now too. And so we wanted to really have a program that spoke directly into that. And so we do have rather than having a single person do a keynote, we've got a panel discussion that I think you're going to find very interesting, that include 3 businesses and 3 different types of transition. So we've got Gina Thorson from Stormy Cromer, so he's a pretty famous brand in the Upper Peninsula, but an internationally known retail brand, and but a manufacturer, and it's a transition from father to daughter in ownership, so a generational transition that is ongoing for that business. We've got Chris Scheffler from Scheffler's Ferry Service that goes from Mackinac City to Mackinac Island. Of course, very famous small business that many of us have had a lot of interactions with and great experiences and memories tied to. Where there's a sale of a portion of a business and a new majority owner coming in to the business. And then David Roy, who's been on this show many, many times. And David Roy has sold his business outright to another couple. So in this case, not like a private equity firm, but another couple, the Murata Group, so it goes from one family to another family. So still a family business. Really cool changes that are happening out there, and you look across the landscape, there's tons of it, and so we really wanted to speak into the types of changes and transitions that are happening. 3 different very highly engaged people with our association that will be involved in this conversation together, and we'll all get the benefit of learning from how their transitions are going, a little bit of the why and the story behind it, what they expect for the future. But we have the sessions in the morning too, that are you can kind of pick from a menu of the things that interest you the most. Breakouts into smaller sessions, always very insightful. It's a time where you can, instead of you're always working in your business, but it'll be a time to kind of work on your business, to pick up new things, to meet new people, to get new insight in this world that has changed so quick over the last few years. And then, of course, there's booths and things for exhibitors that just want to get connected to and exposure to small business owners. There's a lot of ways that you can participate in it. Just to buy a ticket or buy a table and to come and be a part of it. You could also sponsor if you've got, if your main customer base are small businesses, maybe you want to be a sponsor of the event. So this will be a great opportunity to plug in. It's the biggest event we do every year. I mean, it's our first time doing it coming out of the pandemic and live. We've been doing it virtual for the last 2 editions, but this is live. Typically this is around 500 people. There's a nice big crowd in the Lansing Center. So I wouldn't be surprised if we had all that and more in this next go around. Would love to see you there. We also have our board transition that happens at that time. We give out awards. We recognize legislators of the year. We recognize our volunteers of the year, the small business advocates of the year, members that are out there and just working hard to make things happen in public policy and talking to the media and doing a lot of great work in order to help the bigger cause of advancing the interests of small business owners. It's a great day, one of my favorite days of the year. Would love to have everybody who tunes into this briefing, please consider coming.
I was going to say the same thing. There's a lot of you who watch that we haven't had the opportunity to meet in person, and this might be the perfect time. All right, I think that's all we have for you today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we will be back here on Monday.
All right, everybody, see you on Monday. Have a nice weekend.